Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's fact. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 1 of the Last Round Podcast. I am Danny Z with my co-host from across the pond, now resides in Southern California, Michael Shepard, aka Shep. So it's easy for you guys to remember, S-H-E-P. How's it going, Shep?
I'm good, just living that American dream.
Back here in Southern California. You've been here for what? For 4 years now?
For 4 years, yeah.
From Newcastle, England, right?
That's it.
And so, you know, we've been building the show for the last couple months, and we definitely wanted to get the first episode out of the way before arguably the biggest event of the year in the rematch between Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Triple G Golovkin, September 15th, next Saturday, from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, promoted by Golden Boy Promotions and Triple G Promotions. And obviously they fought last September. They were supposed to fight in May, and the whole clenbuterol scandal happened. You know, that'll take our conversation in a totally different direction. So we shouldn't even touch on that right now. I mean, that's for another show. Maybe after the rematch, we can kind of tie it all together. But you know, let's start with that entire card. I think, you know, a big surprise to everybody, Chocolatito Gonzalez is going to be fighting on the card against Moises Fuentes. What do you think about that fight, Shep?
I think it's a good fight coming back for Chocolatito after having those two losses to Rungvisai. He kind of needed something to get him back on track, should we say. Obviously...
What weight is this fight at?
It's looking like it's probably going to be, 118?
Is it 118? Or is it 115? Because, I don't know, man, like, you know, it obviously, especially when he fought Rungvisai and all that, even when he fought Quadros, like, you know, everybody kept saying 112 was his ceiling, you know. But, you know, I like Chocolatito. You know, obviously for the longest time he was considered the pound-for-pound best, especially when Mayweather came off, you know, went into retirement mode, essentially. He wasn't as continuously active. But then, you know, like you said, the Rungvisai, the first loss, I think, you know, it affected him. But it was still a close fight, and I think that's what they made the rematch. He's like, you know, let's see if I can, you know, revenge. See if I can get that win back. Well, it was even worse the second time. You know, he just got laid out. And then, you know, Rungvisai's stardom went up. And, you know, do you think it affected his, you know, his character, his psyche? What do you think? You think he's going to be able to come back to that elite level and get up to a world championship level?
I don't think, obviously, he'll come back as the fighter he was before, being the pound for pound. It seems to be the guys in the smaller weight divisions don't have a long shelf life. I think maybe, you know, all that time having to make weight at the older ages, you know, like now he's only 30s, he's 31. I think he'll be in and around, especially with the Superfly cards. We'll probably see him on a few big cards, but I think we've seen the best of Chocolatito. Right.
You know, I could agree with that, but, you know, there's always a good chance. Like, it's not like he's 36, 37 years old. You know, he could still, there's always still a chance there. And I think he can come back, and I think he can show something. You know, just looking here on BoxRec, Moises Fuentes is 25-5 with one draw. And his last fight was in February of this year against Daigo Higa for the World Boxing Council WBC World Flyweight title, and he lost in a KO decision. And just looking at his record, the last 4 fights he's been in, he's lost 3 of the 4. So, I mean, essentially, do you agree with me that this is more of a showcase fight for Chocolatito in order to get his confidence back? Because, you know, obviously these promoters, especially guys like, you know, Tom Loeffler, who essentially has been promoting Chocolatito for a long time, or at least co-promoting, knows that Chocolatito still has some value. So you think this is more of a showcase fight than anything?
Yeah, exactly. I think, you know, the Superfly card, with the third one being tomorrow, it's a popular card, and people want to see Chocolatito. They want to see Rungvisai. Obviously, Chocolatito with the losses, and Rungvisai having those personal issues. everybody wants to see them obviously on Superfly 4 next year. So if they can get those two back in the ring, give them a few opponents that look good against, have a huge Superfly 4 card, maybe in Easter. So I mean, they still have the name,
right?
So
right, and it's looking at Chocolatito's last fight, of course, was against Sorang Visai. He's going to be a year out of. Actually, I think this week it was a year that he's been out of action. So you think that's going to affect him? You think he's going to be back in training mode, or or do you think he just needed that time off to kind of reflect after back-to-back losses?
I think the proof will be in the pudding next week, I guess. I think he probably needed the time off after getting convincingly, knocked out. After losing the first one, like you said, it was kind of controversial. I think he lost, but he was kind of close. And then coming back in, seeking revenge, and then just getting really quite badly knocked out. So I think some time off to clear his head and then come back. Like you just said, you touched on it. He picked a good opponent, lost 3 of his last 4. So I think it'll be a good stepping stone to get back.
It's a confidence builder.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully for next year to a bigger fight.
Yeah, especially it's a good thing you touched on the Superfly. There's been now with the one upcoming. Depending on when you listen to this, Superfly 3, right? Mm-hmm. This is the 3rd one.
Tomorrow
is actually tomorrow. And obviously, this is becoming a recurring theme here in Southern California, whether it's at the Forum in Inglewood or in Carson at the StubHub Center. Tom Loeffler is obviously trying to make this, an annual event, Superfly. And it seems like it's working. A lot of people show up, and I think they obviously want Chocolatito to get some wins under his belt, so he can headline or at least be on another Superfly card in the future. Because why wouldn't you want him? I think he could still draw. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously his drawing power is probably a little bit low right now, but he's still a name. And his wins, just because he has 2 losses now, he still has 49 wins. So it's not like he's a horrible boxer. He's still a great boxer. It just he stepped up in weight, and he just found somebody who gave him a challenge. But how much could you say about that in terms of other boxers who take risks like that? Especially back to back. So what do we got? What do we got after that? We got Lemieux O'Sullivan, David Lemieux, and Spike O'Sullivan. Spike O'Sullivan was remember when the whole Triple G Canelo in May, it was canceled, and then they were trying to find an opponent for Triple G. Spike O'Sullivan kept getting mentioned, and obviously it didn't go through. But he did fight on that undercard, and he won of the Triple G. Who did he fight? The Armenian from Glendale, Avanasian, right? Mm-hmm. What do you think about this fight, Lemieux, Spike O'Sullivan? Touching on Lemieux really quick. I was completely surprised how BJ Saunders toyed with him. Especially because how Lemieux has been a power puncher, and he's a knockout artist essentially, especially when he knocked out Curtis Stevens and stuff like that. I mean, what do you think about this fight, Lemieux and O'Sullivan?
I think it's a good fight, kind of more of a 50-50 fight. I think Gary O'Sullivan he's actually quite a good boxer, not technically gifted, but something like him and David Lemieux are kind of similar fighters. They're come forward fighters. They like a good scrap. It's going to probably be a good fight for the fans. The only problem I have is David Lemieux. Obviously, when he fought the Billy Joe Saunders fight, you could tell just looking at his body at the weigh-in that he looked like he'd struggled to make weight. Looked kind of flabby. Had a little muffin top.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, because there was talk of him actually moving up in weight.
Right.
So I don't know whether this fight
to super middleweight.
That's what I heard. He's looking at moving up. So I don't know whether this fight is...
You don't think it's too small, though?
I think he would be too small, but it just depends on whether... Obviously, he's not getting any younger, whether...
That's true.
I mean, his biggest battle for this fight might just be the weigh-in.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it on paper, he's the bigger name, he's the bigger draw. Mm-hmm. He's been in the bigger fights. Mm-hmm. This is probably Spike O'Sullivan's biggest fight, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And I think he knows that. I'm interested. I'm really interested in this fight. I'm really interested in this fight. Of course, not looking at the main event, of course, I'm really interested in this fight because I want to see how Lemieux responds after his loss against BJ Saunders. But I also want to see what Spike O'Sullivan has, this being the biggest fight he's ever going to be in. And obviously he knows, okay, if I win, there's obviously bigger fights down the line for me. It's possible. I saw a rumor this week, and I don't think it's real, but it might have been just some random gossip, but saying that Golden Boy had a date locked in December for Canelo. And then people started talking about, maybe a Danny Jacobs fight or winner of Spike O'Sullivan Lemieux. I don't think Canelo would fight in December. I don't think he's gonna fight. If he does, I'd be really surprised. I'd enjoy it. But obviously, the winner of Lemieux O'Sullivan, especially if Canelo wins, will likely fight the winner of Triple G Canelo. Mostly if Canelo wins, because O'Sullivan is signed under Golden Boy at the moment, right? And so is Lemieux. They're Golden Boy fighters. So, it just makes sense. 2 middleweight fights. Both of these, all 4 of these fighters are in the top 10, essentially, in the middleweight division. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Most promotions like to keep that money in-house.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Ask Bob Arum about that. He knows all about that. I mean, you could ask anybody, Al Heyman, they've all done it. It's the nature of the business. But I think that, especially if Canelo wins, and he gets all those middleweight titles from Triple G, De La Hoya and Golden Boy is going to tell Triple G, look, we'll fight it. We're going to fight again. This is going to be a trilogy. But Canelo is going to defend these titles against the winner of Lemieux O'Sullivan. I guarantee you that's the prospect right now. That's the potential plan. I'd be surprised, if they put Canelo against Danny Jacobs. Danny Jacobs is a dangerous fighter. But we'll get to. Now we're jumping ahead a little bit. But who do you got? Who do you got in the O'Sullivan Lemieux?
I'm gonna have to go with the Irish guy. I'm gonna have to stick with the Brit. I'm gonna go for the underdog. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go for Mr. Gary Spike O'Sullivan. Spike
O'Sullivan. And what do you think he's gonna outbox him? I mean, because regardless if Lemieux did get toyed with by BJ Saunders, Lemieux still has power. Mm-hmm. He gives you that one shot, and I mean we've seen it. And the first legitimate time I saw Spike O'Sullivan fight was on the Triple G undercard earlier this year. And, I think he did all right. But, in terms of, I didn't really see any power there. Did you see any power behind his punches? Did you see that fight?
I didn't see much power. The reason I'm going for Gary Spike O'Sullivan is I think Lemieux, like that saying from Rocky where the trainer's like, he's become... civilianized. What does he say?
Right. No, I can't. I remember that.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly the words to it, but I think Lemieux, he's had the money. He's been up there. He's had the big fights and stuff like that. He struggled to make weight against Billy Joe Saunders.
Right.
He's living that good life.
Oh, absolutely.
Spike O'Sullivan is not. He's not had those big fights. Probably his biggest fight so far was Antoine Douglas.
I agree with that.
Right. That was kind of like his coming out fight.
Right.
I think people kind of expected him to lose that because Douglas was. On the surge, he was coming up through the ranks. So I think Spike O'Sullivan, he's going to want it more. This is his big fight. It's on a big card. He's on the pay-per-view part of the card. It's going to be a big payday for him. So I think he's going to go in there. He's going to want it more. And I think he might actually take him out, around...
You think he could stop Lemieux?
I think he might. I think just the pressure. Yeah. I don't think he doesn't have that one big punch, but I think just going in there, he's going to take shots. He'll take a few shots to give one.
Right.
So I think Spike will go in there, and I think he'll round 8, round 9.
Right.
Yeah, I think he'll take him out.
That's surprising. because I don't know. I mean, I think the last time Lemieux got stopped was Triple G, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
That was the last time, and then you can't be that ashamed when the last person to stop you was Gennady Golovkin. Even if like guys like a BJ Saunders did outbox him for 12 rounds essentially and toyed with him. Lemieux obviously has a chin. Like, he could take some shots. But obviously, with Gennady just, his shots are just on a different level, especially during that time when he fought Lemieux. And they fought in New York, I think, right? That was a New York fight. But
because if you look at Spike O'Sullivan's record, his 2 losses to Chris Eubank and to Billy Joe Saunders.
Yeah.
And they're kind of 2 guys that like to box.
Yeah.
Eubank not as much as Billy Joe. Billy Joe's fleet of foot.
Right.
So Spike O'Sullivan does well against people that just want to stand and bang, which is Lemieux.
Right.
But they're both the similar fighters.
Right.
So,
I'm intrigued about this fight. I really am. Like as I mentioned, I want to see if Lemieux, if his pride is still shot from the BJ Saunders loss, or if he's going to come back and like, you know what, I'm going to knock this guy out and get my rhythm back. Or if Spike O'Sullivan, of course, he knows that he has a lot of stuff on the horizon, especially if he wins. Because I when I saw him at StubHub at the Triple G fight earlier this year in May, after his fight, it was the day before, because the day before they had the Ryan Garcia
card.
And it was an ESPN card, I think. And Spike O'Sullivan was there in the stands, walking around with his suit, with his sunglasses.
His white suit?
Yeah. And he loved the attention, he loved the attention, walking around, and people, of course, you enjoy it. So I think, I don't know, man. Like, I'm pulling for Lemieux, but you kind of painted a picture right now where, Spike might have more, like a lot more to. I think he has more to gain, of course. I don't know, man. I think that the X factor is Lemieux's power, and how O'Sullivan responds to that. Because I'm sure he's studying a lot of tape of BJ Saunders, that fight against Lemieux. Was it earlier this year or last year?
Last year, I think.
Last year? I don't even remember, but that was the last fight, obviously, for Lemieux. But you know what? I'm going Lemieux, man. But
December.
Yeah, I'm going Lemieux on this. I think he stops him, but I can definitely see your points in O'Sullivan. I can definitely see him. So if he takes it, it's not going to be a total surprise. But I don't know. I just think that Lemieux, with that one power shot, he's going to make him respect his power, and then, but we'll see. But that's why it makes it such an intriguing fight. And then obviously they both know, okay, especially if Canelo wins, we're probably going to get Canelo soon. So, and, even if they know, like, well, Canelo will beat me, give or take, that's a huge payday for them. It's going to be the best payday, especially for O'Sullivan. That's going to be the best payday he's ever going to get.
He's set for life.
So, there's a lot to gain here. There's a lot to gain. So who else do we have? We got the 21-year-old sensation, at least that's what they're calling him, who just captured, was it the WBO super welterweight title from Saddam Ali over there in New York. Jaime Munguia, who honestly should probably be a middleweight. He's a big kid. And he's fighting Brandon Cook, C-O-O-K, of Canada, who's 20-1 with 13 KOs. It seems like a decent matchup. What do you think about Munguia ever since he won this title, obviously? Going back to that before we dive into it, when Triple G was looking for an opponent in May, Munguia was mentioned as an opponent, and they wanted to do it in Vegas. They wanted to do it in Vegas, but then the Nevada State Athletic Commission, they blocked it, and they said, no, he's not ready for a guy like Triple G. They blocked it because they're like, no, that's too big of a risk. What do you think? What do you think about Munguia?
I think the Nevada Commission doing that to Munguia was the best thing that happened to him. He didn't get that fight, which was, probably would have been his first loss. With not getting that fight, he got the chance to stand in and fight Saddam Ali, because Liam Smith ended up having some kind of skin infection.
Right.
So he couldn't take the fight. He comes in, fights Saddam Ali. Quite early on, you could see there was 2 different weight classes in the ring. Saddam Ali just couldn't take the power. Ali was, trying to outbox him, but Munguia noticed early on that Saddam Ali, when he was connecting, he wasn't really feeling it. He was just kind of stood there. So I think Munguia was just coming forward, was taking the shots that Ali was giving, because it wasn't really affecting him, because like you said, he's more of a middleweight. Mm-hmm. So he takes out Ali and then goes and fights Smith, because Smith obviously was due the title shot, due to having to drop out due to injury. That was quite a good fight. I thought Liam Smith actually gave quite a good impression of himself over here. Unanimous decision, but he looked quite good because.
No, I think he did quite well for the performance he gave. He touched him a lot. For a good part of the fight, he was outboxing him.
A little bit of dirty fighting in there as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I mean, Munguia is he's listed as 6 foot tall. He's a big kid. He's a big. I mean, do you think he needs to be fighting at 154, or do you think it's more okay? Well, his handlers and his promoter okay, well, if you can make it, stay right there because your size is obviously an advantage there, and you obviously got a world title. Because if you move it to 160, that competition is a lot crazier, and it's going to be harder for you to keep a world title or keep your, keep your stardom up. So do you think they tell him stay at 154 as long as you can make it?
Yeah, I agree. I think he's more of a middleweight. I think he'll stay in this division just whilst he's young. He can still make the weight. His body at that age can probably fluctuate. He can go up. He can drop the weight. He'll probably put on 20 pounds overnight, ready for the fight on the day. So yet again, you'll look on TV, or if you're ringside, and you'll see 2 different weight divisions in the ring. But whilst he can still do that, it'll be good. Be interesting to see how many fights he'll do that for, because it's his third fight at that weight category.
Yeah, I believe so.
He'll probably wait for one of the big guys like Canelo or Triple G to get kind of older, and then step up and see what he can do at that weight level.
Right. I mean, obviously he has power. I mean, just look at what he did to poor Saddam Ali. I remember when they made that fight, especially when you saw them in the ring against each other, standing next to each other, I was like, oh no, why would he agree to this fight? And I mean, look at what happened. Those shots that Ali felt just collapsed, and that was it. That was a tough fight for him.
If I was Ali, I would have been kind of pissed at Golden Boy because he kind of threw him to the wolves. They just literally threw him on there.
Yeah.
It's like watching a slaughter on TV.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, Liam Smith was supposed to be the opponent. And he had that alleged skin infection or whatever. And then they put Munguia in there at 6 foot tall, way bigger. And Ali's not a big guy. He's not even really a super welterweight. Before, most of his career has been, I think, at welterweight, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And then he moved up to fight Cotto in Cotto's farewell fight.
Yeah.
And and because obviously they couldn't secure anybody, and I'm sure they told Ali hey, you want to move up, fight Cotto, especially if you can beat him. You get his world title and you beat a Hall of Famer. I mean, and you get a payday. It doesn't seem like a bad deal.
Win-win.
So, he took it. He got the world title. And then wasn't the first defense supposed to be against Smith?
Yeah.
And then Smith gets out and Munguia comes in, and then that's it. Oh, man. And now Munguia obviously has the title. And he's undefeated. He's 30-0. 30-0. And then Brandon Cook, who's obviously his opponent, September 15th on the Canelo Triple G undercard. He's 20 wins with 13 KOs with 1 loss. And the last 3 fights he's had, he's won 2 and he's lost 1. So, he barely got his first loss last year, actually. September 9th, 2017. It was a TKO against Kanat Islam for the WBA NABA Super Welterweight title.
Brandon Cook was supposed to fight Kell Brook back on.
Yeah, I remember that.
July 28th until Kell Brook suffered an injury. That was on the undercard of Dylan White, Joseph Parker.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So, I mean, have you seen Brandon Cook fight before? Do you think he has a chance? Do you think Munguia is gonna I mean, the only thing with Munguia is obviously he's young, and obviously with Liam Smith did to a certain extent expose him in certain aspects of his fight game.
Very flat-footed.
He's very flat-footed, but I think I think he relies so much on his power. Yeah. So he's okay, if I can just connect, then I can take it from there.
Because he's another one he'll take a shot to give a shot, because I think he knows that he's got so much power that he'll take a shot because he knows that he can try and finish it. He needs to get into range, and he like we said, he's flat-footed. He needs to have his feet set to generate that power. And then with him having to dropping down so much weight, that he comes in, he's so much bigger than everybody else, which I think gives him the belief and the size advantage that he can take all those shots, because he's always at least 20 pounds bigger on fight night.
On fight night, yeah.
So
he rehydrates a lot.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting, especially after this fight, because where he goes. Because looking at box record, the only people in the world rated higher than him at the minute is Jamal Charlo, Erislandy Lara, and Jarrett Hurd.
See, but I think even if he's not ready for those guys.
No,
I know he's a world title. So I heard this once years ago, from somebody, or actually a couple people in the industry, who said, you know, when we call them a world title holder, it's different than calling them a world champion. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
So, he's just holding it.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, and it's kind of an insult. It really is kind of an insult. But I mean, do you agree with that? Like, you know, that some people are world title holders or they're world champion?
Yeah, I would agree with that, because you know, you get sometimes somebody kind of obscure that will have a title, and they'll have it just for that one fight. They're kind of just like a little interim between somebody else picking it up. Saddam Ali is a good example. You know, Cotto had it, Saddam Ali got it. Golden Boy just tried to keep it in house, tried to fit him to Munguia, and then Munguia just came in and blasted him out. And then, you know, look, you can kind of tell when a promotion wants to keep that fighter as a challenger, because you know, Munguia's had good fight with Liam Smith. This seems a good fight. You know, the ball's in Munguia's court. I would say he's definitely going into that fight as the leader. You know, obviously the other guy's he's the underrated fighter.
Right.
So,
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, are you picking Munguia to win the fight?
Yeah, this is
stoppage.
Yeah.
12 round.
I think he'll stop him. He's going to be huge. I would say round 5, quite early.
Pretty early.
Yeah, I think Golden Boy have made it. You know, it's a big show. They want to make big money from him.
Yeah.
He's obviously got the biggest budget. Been in Nevada, you know, he's a Southern California guy. He's got all the Mexican fans.
Right.
It's on the Mexican Independence Day.
Absolutely.
I think they picked somebody who's kind of going to be so much smaller than Munguia, so Munguia can get in there, blast him out, gain exposure on that card. Because we were actually just talking about this before. You know, Golden Boy don't have too many big stars.
Nope.
They want him to be the big star. He's young. He's undefeated. A good knockout ratio.
Yeah.
What more do the fans want?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. I think Munguia is going to stop him. I mean, it could be the 5th round. I could agree with that. I'll go with that too. 5th round, 5th or 6th round. You know, I just think that he's, like you said, as we talked about earlier, his power shots are just. That's what he wants to connect with. If he can connect with one of them and he can kind of see that he wobbled you or he got you a little bit, kind of threw off your equilibrium, then I think he knows, like, okay, I can take it from here just as long as I keep connecting. So, yeah, I'm taking Munguia. And like you said, Golden Boy obviously wants him to keep winning, especially on a big card just as this. And he's young, especially, you know, if he can keep the world title and especially if he can keep knocking out guys, which is a fan-friendly style, obviously. Then, you know, hey, there's a lot of money to be made at only 21 years old with so many, many years in his career. So that's obviously the co-main event, right? It's not. I think that's the co-main event. It's not Lemieux O'Sullivan, right?
I think Munguia would be.
I think Munguia, because he's a world title.
Yeah.
So now let's go the meat of it. Canelo Alvarez versus Gennady Triple G Golovkin, the rematch, which should have happened in May. Canelo got popped for clenbuterol, blamed it on the tainted meat. It didn't work. Gennady Golovkin had to fight, was it Avanasian? Right there at the StubHub Center, knocked him out in the 2nd round. And then obviously they rescheduled for September 15th from the T-Mobile Arena. And, you know, what do you think?
What do I think of this fight?
Yeah, let's just jump into it.
Go. I think they're both trying to say that they're going to change styles. I don't think they can. I think, you know, they've had a lot of fights. They're kind of older. I think it'll be similar style to the first one. Golovkin will come out. He'll try and take the center of the ring. I think Canelo, being the more skilled fighter, he'll try and stand on the outside. I think he could probably do with not going to the ropes as much, because some rounds he literally just came out and went straight to the ropes.
Right.
Golovkin didn't even need to put him there. Canelo was just kind of like heading over to that way and trying to fight from.
But he's always usually done that. Because he likes countering off the rope.
Yeah, he seems to like countering off the ropes. But I think that's one of the reasons why, like we said before, the casual fans, it makes it look like Golovkin's put him there. It makes it look like Golovkin's forced him into that corner. And Golovkin's got in there, and Golovkin's just unloading on him.
Right.
I think Canelo needs to be a little bit more aggressive. You know, he's tasted Golovkin's power now. He said he didn't feel it. I don't know whether I believe him.
I mean, he did take the shots, though. I mean, I don't think Gennady could in the first fight, he didn't connect on him as well as he's connected on other guys. Or maybe he did, and obviously Canelo's an elite fighter, and he was just able to take the shots. But, you know, did you agree with the draw in the first outcome?
I thought it was close. I could see a draw because some of the rounds were hard to score. 1 or 2 rounds maybe to Golovkin, because personally I like the more aggressive fighter. I know styles make fights, and obviously Canelo, like you said, is actually a counter puncher, but he just didn't unload as much. You know, Golovkin seemed to his punch output was so high. So this time round, I think Canelo, you know, he's still going to be the counter puncher that he is, but just throw more punches.
Right.
You know, try and get in the last 30 seconds, the last minute of the round, and, you know, try and show off to the judges, get more punches out there. Just generally just more work. I think he just needs to work a lot more in this rematch. Yeah,
and, you know, I agree with that. You know, and then obviously the publicity the last couple months, them talking all this smack about each other, and that they hate each other, they're angry at each other, and then Gennady says that he doesn't believe Canelo, that it was a tainted meat, and he actually ingested albuterol, he's a cheater, and, you know, whether it's for publicity or not, to, you know, obviously hype the rematch, you know, it makes it interesting. And, you know, I'm as it gets closer, I mean, just like any fight, I'm sure you feel the same way. As the fight gets closer, especially as we get days and days and days away, you start feeling the excitement more, like, oh, okay, it's almost here. You know, when it gets announced 6 months before, 5 months before, like, oh, okay, great, this is great. But, you know, you really don't start feeling it until it starts getting to, like, fight week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think Canelo's gonna take him. I think Canelo's gonna take him, and I don't know.
What do you think about the layoff though? That's a year and an operation.
That's a big deal. Oh man, and yeah, I don't know when the last time he had such a big layoff like this.
Golovkin's had the little tick over the Martirosyan fight.
Yeah, Martirosyan. That's what I said. I don't know why I said Alvarez. But Canelo, I just think that they're both intelligent fighters. Obviously, making it to this level in their careers, you can't not be an intelligent fighter. I just think that Canelo has the edge. People say, like, oh yeah, Gennady's old, and some people kind of take that excuse, but I don't really agree with that. I think Gennady's still, even though being 36, 37 years old, he's still very disciplined. He can still fight probably for like another couple years. I think Abel Sanchez had an interview recently that he sees Gennady after this fight, especially if he wins, about maybe four more fights, and then he's done. But, you know, I wouldn't be surprised especially if Gennady wins. You think he retires?
No.
You don't think he retires?
I think if Triple G wins, he'll try to fight Billy Joe. I think he'll try to sum up that division, and then maybe the third fight. If Canelo wins, I think he'll do what you said. I think if Canelo wins, we'll see him against the winner of Lemieux and Spike.
Sullivan, yeah.
But I think we'll see a third fight.
Yeah, I honestly think it's in the contract already.
I think May they'll do the Mexican holidays again.
I think it's in the contract already. I just don't know if it's on both sides of the contract. You know, if I had to guess, I would say that it's in Canelo's side. So Canelo says, like, hey, if I lose, I get a rematch. I wouldn't be surprised if Gennady doesn't have that clause in the contract, but he might though, because after Canelo tested positive, he gained a lot of power, and the split of the purse, actually he got what, about
45%. 45 and 55?
Just about, I think so, yeah. So he got a big boost because of that. Like, he got a lot of power in his financial gain after Canelo tested positive. So maybe it is on both sides. I don't know. Maybe it is on both sides, but I can guarantee you that Golden Boy has it on their side. Especially if Canelo loses, they're gonna have an immediate rematch.
Who do you think the loss hurts more? Canelo's already got one loss on his resume, obviously to Floyd Mayweather. Do you think a second loss would hurt him, or do you think Triple G losing would hurt him more?
You know what? That's a really good question. I think it really is. It's a good question because there's going to be a shock factor regardless, especially if whoever loses, if they're knocked out, even if they hit the ground, even if they're just knocked down, but especially if they're knocked out, whether it's Triple G or Canelo, obviously that makes it more dramatic.
Have any of them been knocked down?
I don't think they've ever been knocked down. I don't think they have, unless Canelo was knocked down like in the amateurs, or
I don't think they have as a pro. Not that I can remember.
I don't know. I remember he turned pro at 15 years old or something. And I was like, what the hell? But yeah, you know what? I don't know. I mean, obviously, if you look at it from a age standpoint, Canelo still has a lot of years left. He can recover and come back. But if he gets knocked out brutally by Triple G, I mean, I don't know. We've obviously see it all the time where these great fighters, especially not only when they lose, but when they get knocked out, it really hurts their pride. And sometimes they can't come back from that. They try to come back and it just doesn't work. Look at Matisse. We were talking about Matisse before the show. When he lost to Victor Postol and he comes back, it obviously affected him, and obviously he just lost to Pacquiao, and but at one time a couple years ago, not too long ago, Matisse was one of the strongest punchers in the game. And you know what? I don't know who it hurts more. I would think it'd probably hurt Triple G more because he's viewed, especially since a lot of people said that he won the first fight and they were all up in arms about it, and because Canelo tested positive. But I think for Canelo, I think I'm pulling for him to win. I think he's gonna win. I don't think he's gonna knock him out. I think he's gonna, decision him. But for Canelo's in a tough spot. If he wins, people are just gonna say, "Oh, you were cheating again. They just didn't catch you." They're not gonna give him the credit. And if he loses, they're gonna be like, "Oh, it's because he wasn't cheating." He's in between a rock and a hard place. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. He wins, yeah, the people will say, oh, he was cheating, he didn't get caught, there's so much money involved, they let him get away with things. He loses. He looks visibly smaller than the first fight on the pictures that we've seen.
Yeah.
He does look smaller, so...
well, that's also something that kind of hurts his image, because all these fans, they see oh, look, he's not on the juice anymore, or whatever he was on. Well, I mean, whether it's the truth or not, we're never going to know. We're never going to know. I mean, I think the only thing that helped him in that clenbuterol thing was that there was a precedent before that. So guys like Francisco Vargas, also tested for clenbuterol. I think it was last year, the year before, and they said it was a tainted meat in Mexico. But when you're a superstar in any field, especially in boxing, and something happens, you're going to get a lot more scrutiny. Guys like Francisco Vargas and stuff like that. And when that happened, yeah, there was talking, but it was more of hardcore boxing fans. But when something like this happens, Canelo's mainstream. Not only boxing fans know him, casuals know him, and regular sports fans know who he is. So he's getting a lot more scrutiny. So he's dealing with a bigger backlash. So yeah, I mean, I think he's in a tough spot. I think if he really wants to silence the doubters, I think he at least has to knock him down. At least. If he can knock him out, it's good, but I think he at least has to knock him down. So, but we'll see. But I hopefully they're not as hesitant as they were in the first fight. Because obviously, especially with Triple G's side, you can see that he was kind of hesitant to pull the trigger at times. Because I mean, you're right. I mean, it makes sense because Canelo is obviously an elite fighter, and he can counter, and he saw Canelo going to the ropes, and he was like, I'm not even pushing you to the ropes. You're going to the ropes by yourself. So he's like, okay, well, he's trying to bait me. And at times he did get hit, but you know, Gennady has been hit with all these freaking shots throughout his career, and he's like a bulldozer. He just keeps coming. I think his training sessions, he does like 1,500 to 2,000 sit-ups every time he trains. He spars 4-minute rounds with 30-second rests in between. And you know, just like, I mean, a lot of these elite fighters, he spars 4 or 5 different guys throughout 9-10 rounds. So, you know, one of them will come in 2 rounds, and then so it's always somebody new with, you know, brand new stamina, and Gennady's still, you know, low stamina. But you know, I'm sure Canelo trains like that too. There's a lot of fighters, of course, that train like that. But yeah, like I mentioned, going back to, you know, what we think the outcome is going to be, I think Canelo's going to take him. I want to say somebody's going to go down. Obviously, we would like that because it adds drama. But I don't think anybody's going to go down. What do you think?
I'm going to go the other way. I think Triple G will take him. I think Canelo's just going to do the same thing. He's going to take him into the corners. He's going to try and counterpunch, and I think it's not going to work.
Right.
I think Triple G he's kind of playing into Triple G's trap. That's what he wants. He wants to take him into the corner. But Triple G, that's one of the things he's always been good at, is cutting off the ring, making guys go into the corner and then just unloading on him. I think Canelo might fall for that trap. You know, trying to go against the ropes to try to ride the punches so he can, you know, use the ropes to kind of lean back a bit like he was doing in the first fight. I just don't think it's going to work. I think Golovkin's going to come in. He had to wait all that time. He's getting a bigger payday. He seems genuinely kind of pissed off at Canelo from the first fight.
Yeah.
Not getting a decision as well. So I think there's going to be some vicious punches coming in this time, and I think he's going to, because they've tasted each other's power like I touched on before. I don't think Triple G is going to be as hesitant this time round. I think he's going to, once he gets him in the corner, I think he might just unload.
Right.
I think he'll take him out, and then Cinco de Mayo, we'll see number 3.
Number 3. Yeah. I think regardless, we're gonna see a third matchup. I think we are, because I mean the money's there. You know, the money's there. I mean, obviously in the boxing business, the money's there. Look at, you know, case in point, McGregor Mayweather. Mm-hmm. You know, the money was there. So, So I mean, I guess this is kind of wrapping up our initial grand opening episode of the Last Round podcast. And I'm glad we were able to do it before Canelo and Triple G, the rematch, which happened September 15th from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. It's going to be on pay-per-view and a lot of these other streaming sites, Fight TV, the Fight TV app, Sling TV, and then it's even going to be in theaters. So you're welcome, Golden Boy, plugging all that stuff for you. So they're going all in with this. They're going all in with this. You know, it's a big event. Of course, you want to do, make it available to as many people as possible. But I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. Until that day comes, September 15th, and see what happens, and see which one of us is right. I mean, we can make a little wager right now if you want to make it a little bit more interesting. Or a little
do
bet.
A double. I'll take Triple G and Spike O'Sullivan.
Okay, yeah, and I'll take Lemieux and Canelo. And then on the next episode of the Last Round podcast, we'll talk about whoever the winner was between me and you. We'll talk about what the prize is, But of course, we want to see what happened September 15th, the Canelo Triple G undercard, and thanks. We appreciate you listening to this initial show, episode 1 of the Last Round podcast. Whether you're listening on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play,
Audio Boom,
wherever you're at, whether you downloaded it, you're streaming it, however you're listening, we appreciate it. We're going to try to do these as much as we can, talk about all the boxing stuff. And if you can also follow us on social media at the Last Round 12, so that's the Last Round 1-2 on Twitter and Instagram. Give us a shout. Send us a message. We're gonna start getting some pretty solid guests on the show eventually. probably sooner rather than later. You know, a lot of fighters, a lot of boxing personalities, trainers, you know, people from all over the industry. We're going to get them on, and then we're going to pick their brains, and we're going to talk boxing, because you know, it's the last round. And I think this is a good start to a new beginning for this show. What do you think, Shep?
I agree. If any of the fans have anything they want to see, any guests they'd like us to try and reach out to try and get on, just give us a DM. Just let us know. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. You know, we're open to any ideas from people. So then if you see us at events, you see the two towers, the 6'7", 6'3" walking through, just come over, say hi.
Right. You'll see us at events. So, you know, thanks again for listening to episode 1 of the Last Round podcast, and make sure to follow us on social media, Last Round 12. And when you see the Twin Towers, Shepard and Danny Z at all these boxing events, come and say hi. It's the Last Round, guys.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is the Last Round